Unfortunately, just like last year, stage 1 of the Tour de France has started with multiple crashes once again, the first caused by an idiotic fan putting their sign into the middle of the road. More on that later, but as we get into the recap, Pogacar lining up last year's champion as they kicked off in Brest to Landerneau. 198 up and down kilometers, 6 categorized climbs, 1 for the puncheurs, not the pure sprinters. And the finish was a bit tricky, both technical in the run-in with 2 roundabouts, 2 90-degree turns before the base of the climb. Starts with 3 k's to go where that red circle is. And then the climb itself, the Côte de la Fosse aux Loups, the Pit of Wolves, 3 k's at 5.7%, but the first 1,200 meters are the steepest part. So this is where, if Alaphilippe wanted to make a difference with his uphill punch, where he should attack, where he had to try something against riders like Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel, who have a quicker flat sprint than him, and the finish is pretty flat. But the KOM jersey was on offer today. Victor Campenaerts trying to get in an early move, taking the first point for the KOM competition, but the main break that went with Perez, Connor Swift for Arkea, and Ida Schelling for Bora Hansgrohe, who looked very good in the Ardennes this year. But they didn't get too much leash from the peloton. Alpecin and Phoenix were doing most of the pacing. Mathieu van der Poel was the favourite for today's stage. And in that break, Ida Schelling was having trouble on, this was one of the steeper climbs of the day, 900 metres at 9%. He got dropped there, so he decided he'd just attack the breakaway with 84 k's to go, drafting that motorbike cleverly, and the break pretty much gave up. Was allowed to be subsumed into the peloton. Schelling went clear, 2-minute 10 lead. And interestingly, Caleb Ewan went for the intermediate sprint today, taking the most points out of anyone in the peloton. Now, he didn't have much to lose because he wasn't going to contest the stage finish, but it seems that Ewan is going for the green jersey pretty seriously. Schelling, knowing that he'd be wearing the KOM jersey on stage 2, celebrated over that line, but that line was about to cause problems for the peloton. They folded about 2 minutes after. Robert Hersink and Tony Martin are on the left. Martin's just ducked out of Hersink's wheel, trying to move in front of him to the left-hand side. And this is the moment before disaster. You can already see how these spectators, they inch out. So the first person will be trying to take a photo in front, and then the other person trying to get a better angle behind them, steps further into the road. Already you can see Tony Martin, when you zoom in, he was actually having to avoid that small child. The camera changes angle. We see a crash. We don't know exactly what happened. Hersink and even Garcia Cortina on the radio. Got Wout van Aert caught up, Julian Alaphilippe, Sagan. The whole of Jumbo-Visma had crashed. We eventually saw right here this person on the left-hand side, and I spoke at length about this on Lantern Rouge Cycling Podcast, got a little bit heated about it after the stage, but it just doesn't make sense to me that you'd go and stand all day and, you must be a cycling fan. You turn your back to the race, you know the race is coming, you can hear it coming, you're stepping into the road, and you can't see it as well in this angle. That sign is like 2 riders' depth, nearly touching Robert Hersink's right arm into the road, and Tony Martin can't avoid it. He hits the fan's arm, not just the cardboard, it's their arm that brings him down. Turnison goes down really hard, he rides over Tony Martin, Roglic, Wingegaard, Kuss, pretty much everyone on Jumbo-Visma crashes. You can see it here, the spectators in that yellow jacket on the top left-hand side. Martin's sort of on the right-hand side of Hersink's wheel. We always expect stage 1 jitters and maybe a touch of wheel and crashes, but it's a shame to see a fan bring down riders, and Tony Martin was really banged up. We'll wait to see whether he starts tomorrow. De Koning Quickstep waited for Alaphilippe to come back. All the GC contenders, including Roglic, did come back, and then once Alaphilippe was back, De Koning Quickstep started pacing really hard because Wout van Aert was behind, and then they stopped pacing once Wout van Aert got into the group. That seemed pretty transparent to me with 27 k's to go, and then 7 k's to go in the run into the finish. Another crash. This time it was just a touch of wheels, and you can see the importance of having your GC leaders and prime riders at the front. Ineos at the front, keeping Thomas safe. We don't know where Richie Porte was. He wasn't in that Ineos group. Pogacar's at the front with UAE, Jumbo-Visma close to the front behind Quickstep on the right-hand side as we look at it. And Alpecin had been pacing a lot, but then Ineos and Quickstep had taken over, and it's pretty much Alpecin's whole team that gets taken out, apart from Mathieu van der Poel. I think B&B rider touched the back wheel of the UAE rider. You see this fan in the blue jersey, they get absolutely destroyed, and this mother yoinks her child out of the way. His head narrowly avoids that pole. I mean, this crash was super scary. I think more riders were injured in this high-speed crash than in the first one. Froome was banged up, but the race just had to go on. There was 6 k's left, Quickstep were pacing, and as I said at the top of this recap, the base of this climb is where they needed to do the damage. They strung this out so much, they dropped Mohoric off the wheel, Asgreen and Ballerini. Alaphilippe had a few choice words for Mohoric, who's closing the gap himself to his own teammates. And he was looking behind Alaphilippe for this man, Dries Devenens, one of the most important inclusions in Quick-Step's team for this year's Tour de France with these first two punchy stages. He's the man that drove a hard pace in Lombardia for Evenepoel last year, and he's the main rider on that team because Asgreen and Ballerini can't really do it, who can really increase the pace for Alaphilippe on these climbs. You see him talking to Alaphilippe, and you can see the change of pace with 2.6 k's to go, stringing this out. Van der Poel, you see him fifth wheel, you're saying, okay, he's in good position. He did not start there going to the base of that climb. He was like 25th wheel, and he had to do a big acceleration to move up the left-hand side. Roglic is on his wheel, Colbrelli in fantastic position, fourth wheel, Wout van Aert marking Alaphilippe. And just like we saw in Tirreno-Adriatico stage 2, when it's over 6%, Alaphilippe can just kick away from Wout van Aert. He did the same in Imola last year. He's the best puncher in the world. And once he gets that initial separation, it's the lack of cohesion in the group behind. Wout van Aert looking behind, seeing A, where Roglic is, B, Van der Poel, why doesn't Van der Poel pull or someone else pull? It shouldn't just be Wout van Aert. And Roglic actually attacks across. A really smart move from Jumbo-Visma. It takes the pressure off Wout van Aert for that moment. Latour actually closes it to Roglic. He's got Pogačar on his wheel, and then Latour is actually going to go around Roglic, probably over his limit, and you see he's just behind Julian Alaphilippe with 2 k's to go. They're going over 25 k's an hour. If he gets in the draft, it can make a big difference. But at this point, Roglic is on Pogačar's wheel, but Roglic refuses to do anything, and Pogačar eventually stops pulling because he's not going to tow Roglic to the line to take more bonus seconds. So interesting to me that maybe Roglic was over his limit, or maybe he's happy for Alaphilippe to, take 10 bonus seconds and 8 to 10 seconds on the line, because Roglic gets subsumed into that Wout van Aert group. Van Aert goes on the front with a K to go, starts pacing hard, and with Latour blown up completely, Julian Alaphilippe with a huge performance on the Côte de Force or loop, easily over 7.5 watts per kilo for over 5 minutes, and takes the yellow jersey, the stage win, 10 bonus seconds, 8 seconds on the line to Matthews. And Roglic on Jonas Vingegaard's bike after crashing takes 4 bonus seconds. A huge performance from him. Froome was banged up. He's gone for scans. Apparently, we don't know his condition yet. Here's the top 10. Alaphilippe first, Matthews second, Roglic, Haig, lovely performance from Haig, fourth. Kelderman, Pogačar go to Igita Mollema and Geraint Thomas. Richie Porte finished 2 minutes back. He'd been behind that second crash, so he's already way behind on GC, as well as Lopez 2 minutes behind. So not a great start for Ineos and Movistar. But if you want to hear more from me during the Tour de France, you can join channel membership through the join button down below. You can join then the Discord. We have voice chat for every stage where we're talking about the stage live in real time. The link to that is on the community tab for YouTube members. But I hope you enjoy the video. Until tomorrow, ciao.